Hello, champions. Welcome to Coffee with Shrikant. That's me. Thank you for joining this episode. At Coffee with Shrikant, we keep talking about leadership, talent, and people all the time. And this is very important for any organization's and business's success. Jack Welch, the legendary CEO who retired and he passed away recently of GE, uh, and I have always followed him in his thinking and how he has managed the leadership business at GE. He says it's very important for a leader to be a chief meaning officer. And what is chief meaning officer? He says that you have to tell people the meaning of what you are doing. You have to tell why you are doing that. And the most important thing, a leader must tell people what is in it for them. So giving something that people would understand as a purpose of what you are doing. At the same time, he says that you have to remove the clutter, become a good housekeeper, break down things into doable things, understandable things. Now, this kind of wisdom is well said, but when you really experience it by listening to somebody who has been practicing principles like this of leadership, it's very interesting for us and looks easier after that to follow such principles of leadership and managing talent. Today, I'm very happy to introduce a leader who actually resonates this thinking and philosophy. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Arvind Mediratta, the Managing Director and CEO of Metro Cash and Carry India. Incidentally, I have had a privilege of working together with Arvind in one of my past companies. And I have seen him, a very passionate leader, a great businessman, and very, very focused on people, culture, and managing business that makes his customers successful. Has an illustrious career, started working with company like D&G, then moved on to work for great companies like Marico, Yum Brands, Whirlpool, Walmart, and now Metro Cash and Carry. Arvind has worked globally outside India and with these multinational companies has a great experience being a marketeer, being a merchandiser, and being a great leader that actually gives him the authority to tell us what can be done in this situation of crisis by companies like us and how do we really get ready for the future that is post COVID-19, how organizations should recover. Without wasting much time, let's move and let's talk to Arvind. Hello, Arvind. Welcome to my show, Coffee with Shrikant. Thank you so much for joining. I'm very happy to see you after a long time.
Thank you, Shrikant, for having me over. It's also a pleasure to see you and reconnect with you after almost ages. So
yes.
Look forward to the interaction.
Thank you so much. Arvind, we are all going through this COVID-19 situation, and the problem is almost like a global problem now. Every industry is impacted, and people are just trying to find out ways and means of how best we can respond to this. Would you tell us how your company, your industry is responding to this challenge?
Sure. So let's start by talking a little bit about our company because a lot of people may not know what Metro Cash and Carry is. So we are the largest food wholesale company in the world. And in India, we run 27 cash and carry stores. It's a 100% German subsidiary of Metro AG, which is headquartered in Düsseldorf, Germany. And we have permission to do wholesale, which is we are allowed to sell only to people with a registered business in the country. So we focus on three types of customers. The first customer segment is what we call traders. And within that, the big focus area are the kiranas, the neighborhood mom and pop food and grocery stores. The second big segment is what we call HoReCa, which is hotels, restaurants, and caterers. And the third segment is what we call SEOs, services, companies, and offices. It could be manufacturing units, it could be offices, large, small, medium, or SOHOs. It could be government institutions like army, police. It could be colleges, universities, hospitals, etc. So they are part of what we call the SCO group, services, companies, and offices. So during the lockdown, we saw some very interesting trends. So as you know that all the restaurants and all the hotels have been shut down by the government under the lockdown for the last
Yes.
40, 45 days. So the whole HoReCa sector got a body blow because of the lockdown. So that segment is about 17, 18% of our business. So that got seriously impacted after the lockdown. But we, instead of focusing on the challenges, we decided to focus on the opportunity. And the big opportunity was with kiranas. As you know, when people are in lockdown, they need access to basic daily food and grocery essentials, right?
Yes.
The government had the expectation at that point of time when the lockdown was announced initially that the e-commerce companies would start doing delivery of food and grocery to every household in the country. And we had told them from day one that this is unrealistic. You know, the government paid attention to some of the things that we said, and sometimes it's very difficult to change the beliefs of people. So we got on with what we could do and what was within our sphere of influence. So we decided to focus on kiranas in a very big way. We doubled down in terms of our investments and focus on the kirana segment. And we have found that in the last, almost 42 days since the lockdown was implemented, our kirana business has grown by about 45 to 50%. And we have become the preferred partner for kiranas. And kiranas are essentially buying all the basic food and grocery essentials. So you look at commodities. So they're buying atta, chawal, dal, spices. They're buying hardy produce, which is your coconut, onion, potatoes, etc., garlic, ginger. And they're also buying a lot of FMCG products, both in health and hygiene area, as well as if you look at toiletries and detergents. So that segment has grown by 45%. It has more than compensated the sale loss in the HoReCa segment. At the same time, we saw another big opportunity, which was in terms of catering to the charitable orders. There were a lot of NGOs which were trying to feed the daily migrant workers, laborers, underprivileged sections of the society who had been stranded in the big cities. And that segment also we thought was a big opportunity for us. Our team focused on that. And we have seen a growth in that segment, what I call SCO Pro segment. Normally the sales in that segment go to the large offices, institutions, it goes to colleges, universities. But in this case, in the last month, in the month of April, almost 90% of those sales are to NGOs who have been buying bulk commodities, 100 kgs of rice, quintals of potatoes, quintals of oil, etc., to feed these migrant workers. And this is a business that we saw opening across the entire country. So the point is that if you are innovative and you focus on the opportunities which arise in this situation, which is a pandemic, which is nobody could have forecasted this event, you can still find ways of growing your business. And I told my team that let's not worry about HoReCa, because even if we make 50 representations to the government of India, they will not open up the hospitality sector. And also, if you look at it from customer standpoint, during the COVID crisis, they're not prone to eating out. Anyway, there was a restriction, they could not go out. But even the delivery sales from restaurants have come down significantly. So there was no point trying to focus on that segment and getting frustrated about it. So we shifted gears to Kirana, which was anyway our big focus area, and we have seen disproportionate growth in that segment. One of the reasons which also benefited us was ample availability of products. As you know, a lot of the traditional wholesale markets were shut down. And the second thing was that the distributors of most of the large FMCG companies were also not operating in full capacity. They were either operating with skeletal staff, 25, 30% of their capacity. So we saw this as an opportunity which we capitalized on. And it's also in line with what Metro stands for. We stand for being the champion for small independent businesses. And in India, Kirana has always been our focus. So it was a great strategic fit. We saw this opportunity during the lockdown, and I think this is also going to be long-term sustainable business for us. So we have a lot of our supplier partners like Coke and P&G and so many other companies who are saying that they see benefits, now a lot of benefits in terms of partnering with Metro to become the preferred route to the market. And I think that's augurs well for our business long-term.
So your employees, the store-based employees, they have been reporting Like they come on normal duty or anything special that you need to
I
do?
think it's a very good question. So, like normal citizens, they were also worried when the lockdown was announced about their
Yeah,
own health and safety. Plus, as you know, there was no public transport available. So, in the first week, the attendance dipped to 15-20% of our normal attendance. And if you don't have staff, you cannot run stores, even if you get government permission to open and run these stores because we come under the essential services.
correct.
So we had to come out with new schemes to motivate the people to come. So first thing which we had to do was to reassure the staff that we have probably the best in class standards in terms of employee and customer safety and health. So we implemented 30 safety and health measures in the stores. Every single customer, every single employee was being checked for temperature. So there were temperature scans which were happening. Anybody with even very little symptom was asked not to report to work, or even customers were not allowed to enter the stores. We were giving free masks to both customers and employees. We have created, plexiglass shields for our customers, for our employees who interface a lot with the customers, especially the cashiers, because they are in frequent touch with the customers. So to give them that protection, the buildings were sanitized on a regular basis. So plus we were maintaining social distancing in the stores. We had to do a lot of crowd management. So initially customers would get frustrated because they had to wait outside the store for sometimes 1 or 2 hours before they could be allowed to enter. But it was important both from their hygiene and safety standpoint as well as the health and safety of our own staff. So people finally realized it. Later on, we started using technology. So like you have to take a doctor's appointment.
Yeah,
When you go and visit them, we told customers that you don't have to wait. You can take an appointment to do your shopping at our stores. So you don't, show up 2 hours and then wait for 2 hours. You just come during the time slot which has been allocated to you. So all these things led to significant improvement also in customer satisfaction. The other thing that we had to do was to really beef up our delivery, because even Kirana customers had difficulty coming to the store, right? Because you need emergency passes to be able to move around in any city, even though you come under the essential services sector. For a big corporate like us, it was easy to organize the passes for our employees and our third party vendors, like even for security staff and housekeeping staff. But for a Kirana shop owner, it's very difficult. So we started an e-commerce platform where they could order. They had visibility to our entire assortment and pricing. Prices were as competitive as they were in the store. Plus, we ramped up our delivery operations and we were able to fulfill half the orders on the same day. So if you place an order with us, if you're a Kirana store owner by 3 p.m., you will get your delivery by end of the day, or maximum within 24 hours the next day. So, we had to do a lot of new things to keep the business going. And one more thing I forgot to mention is on the attendance point, we had to also incentivize staff to come to work. So we organized, since public transport was not working and not operational, we had to run private taxis and cars to bring them from their residence to the stores, number one. Secondly, we also started giving them some incentives, which were varying from 200 rupees per day for housekeeping staff to 400 rupees for department manager level people in the store. It was given on a daily basis. Plus, we also started taking care of their meals and food, because it's very difficult to find meal and food
yes.
during these times since all the restaurants were shut down. So a lot of things had to be done, and I'm very happy to say that in the month of April, our food business is almost at the same level as it was about a year ago. So we have not seen a decline in our food business, because whatever loss we had in terms of customer traffic coming down and SEO, the offices and institutions being closed and Horeca being closed, was more than made up by the Kirana orders as well as the charitable orders that we got. The non-food part of the business, which is a significant part, it's about 15-20%, that suffered because the government banned the sale of all the non-food products. So we have been also working with the government, making representations to them saying that for whatever is considered as non-essential by you may not be considered to be non-essential by the customers. So you have to look
True.
at the customer lens, because there are a lot of people who are now cooking at home. And imagine if you want to have a new tawa, or you want to have new utensils, or your pressure cooker breaks down, you will want to get a replacement, or you want to have a new microwave or a juicer mixer grinder. The government considers it as non-essential, but for a household, it's an essential product. It's as important as your food products. So finally, during the third phase of lockdown, even I will say in some states, we have been given permission to sell these non-essential products in places like Bangalore, places like Hyderabad, Zirakpur in Punjab, as well as in Delhi, one of the stores. So 12 out of 27 stores have started selling essentials to non-essentials 2 days ago. So the other important learning for any organization is you need to engage very proactively with the government, at least in a country like India. And they are very amenable to reasonable and logical arguments. So I've had several meetings with Mr. Piyush Goyal, the Honorable Commerce Minister, with the Minister of Food Processing, Mrs. Badal, and we were able to explain to them that this list of essentials has to be expanded. And we also were able to tell them that, they had to streamline the process of getting passes for not just our employees, but also for delivery vehicles coming from suppliers. Because if trucks are not coming to your store with the essentials, you're not able to have availability of these products for your customers. And we were making them aware of all these issues and challenges being faced in different states on a real-time basis. So I used to have almost a daily call with senior bureaucrats in Delhi, with also with state officials as well as with several ministers. So that was a critical part of my job, to make the government aware of what's the situation in terms of supply chain and what's the situation in terms of availability of different products. For example, when if you look at states like MP have been shut down and they have one of the most rigorous implementation of the lockdown, it impacted the flow of dals, because most of the dals or lentils come from the state of MP. Similarly, Gujarat had a very severe lockdown. A lot of spices come from Gujarat. Rajasthan, again, another important state for commodities. So government is sometimes not aware, but if you make them aware, they listen to logic and they are willing to provide all possible help. So long answer
Yeah,
to
I can't agree more
question.
with you on that, Arvind, because how much is your business regulated? Pernod Ricard businesses are also highly regulated,
Yeah,
and our teams have been experiencing what you said, that the government is amenable, and you need to really educate them on the situation on the ground. It makes all the difference there, and I can see the compassion and the care with which you are leading this particular crisis for your company. Just one curiosity out of my interest, as you said, the so-called non-essential goods being
yeah.
started. So I know you have an alcohol section in your Bangalore store. So have you opened that for our products?
That's a very good question. You've seen what has happened in the last 2 days when liquor sale was allowed. Long queues, almost kilometer long or 3-4 kilometers
Yes.
long. So we have liquor license in all the 6 stores in Bangalore and 2 stores in Hyderabad and 1 store in Calcutta. Unfortunately, in Bangalore, we still are awaiting permission from the government, and I'll explain to you why. In Hyderabad, we got the permission today, so we are starting to sell liquor in Hyderabad stores.
Very
Calcutta,
good.
again, permission has not been granted yet. Now, if you look at how bureaucracy works, that's also very interesting, because a liquor permission was given for standalone liquor stores, while their argument is our stores are standalone stores, right? But liquor is not a standalone section; it's within a big store. So technically,
Oh,
it got into that complication, and we are trying to persuade the authorities that we can maintain a much better social distancing in our stores compared to what the typical roadside liquor shops can do, even if they are standalone. Because we have been doing this for the last 42 days for food and grocery products, so it is very easy for us to do it for liquor products. And second thing is, we only allow entry into our stores for people who have a metro card, which is given only if they have a valid business license.
yeah.
So only those people with a metro card will be allowed to shop for liquor. So let's see. As I said, sometimes you have to work patiently with the government to make them understand what is the right thing to do from business standpoint and economy standpoint. And I'm confident that finally they will listen. Even for non-essentials like kitchen products and apparel and shoes and other articles, small appliances, it's been a long battle. For last 40 days, we have been arguing with the government that these products should be allowed to be sold. E-commerce companies have also tried that.
Yes.
But they finally saw reason only when they moved to third phase of lockdown. So working with the government, one lesson is you have to be patient. You have to be persistent. You cannot give up.
Yeah. And I have, when I listen to this thing, Arvind, and this is what actually differentiates a business from another business, the leadership that business has. uh, your passion, your meticulousness in planning these kind of micro level issues, and also strategizing at macro level. We could very clearly see in this crisis management. We also know that Metro Cash and Carry has been in India for a long period of time, maybe couple of 15 years they have been here, and or more than that. And CEO and MD of Metro Cash and Carry India, the business was not making profits, but we see now the business has turned around and it has become profitable for the company, which definitely deserves an applaud and compliments to you. But we would be curious to know from you as a leader, what is the difference that you have made, and what are those leadership inputs that have really yielded this kind of result for you?
Again, Shrikant, that's a very good question. I will say there are several things which really matter. First thing is your purpose as an organization, right? So first thing which I did when I took charge was to set a clear purpose for the organization. What do we really stand for? And as you know, we have a global purpose, but it was not percolating down very clearly in India. So we said we will be the champion for small independent businesses. And in India, we took a conscious call that there are crores of small independent businesses. So it was very important to decide which is the most important segment that we will go after. So after a lot of strategic breakouts and a lot of thinking, we finally said that the number one priority segment in India would be the kiranas, because we have a very strong conviction, even before the pandemic and before COVID, that kiranas in India are irreplaceable. They are here to stay for the long haul. They are 90% of the food and grocery business in India. They have very strong connection with all the households in their neighborhood. They do immediate delivery. The delivery is also free. They have very low cost structure. So we were convinced that kiranas in India are there to stay. So we said very clearly that our number one strategy is to make kiranas more successful. So when I say champion for small independent businesses, it actually means that you make these small independent businesses more successful. And success for us was making kiranas more successful. And for every business owner, success means three things: more sales, more profit, and better cash flows. So, like we look at our business, we said we need to use the same yardstick and KPIs for a kirana. And if they can see us as a partner who helps them become more successful, helps them get more sales, more profits, and better cash flows, they would partner with us. Because as you know, there are other companies in the same space with far deeper pockets than us who are throwing not millions of dollars, but billions of dollars. But we won because we had the trust of our customers. So that's point number one. Be very clear what your purpose is. And the purpose has to be relevant to the Indian market. For instance, our purpose in Europe, especially Western Europe, is more focused around the hospitality sector. Because in countries like France and Spain and Italy, even Germany, Horeca is a very important part of the overall economy. In India, the Horeca sector is still small. So we decided, okay, we will go after the Kirana segment. The second thing, once your purpose is clear, is it's about people. You need the right team to be able to deliver on that purpose. So we made a lot of changes in our leadership team, brought on people who had the same passion for customer centricity, passion for winning. And I have a very important quote, which I think I have learned from my previous organization and a lot of other leaders that I've interacted with. So I say in retail, on a 10-point scale, when we do your evaluation, I tell this to all the people. So on a 10-point scale, we will give you 1 point for talking and 9 points for doing. So in retail, execution is very important. You need to run great stores every single day for every single customer. You can't have a great store operation in the morning, but a bad one in the evening, or bad one later on in the evening or next day. So you have to consistently excel in terms of execution. So execution is all important. So we told the team that's all about executional excellence. And you can come and make great fancy PowerPoint presentation, but at the end of the day, when your evaluation is done, it's about the results, it's about the execution. So that's a big shift. So we wanted people who could make things happen. If you look at any retailer, any wholesaler, they talk about the same things: great customer service, great prices, wonderful assortment, and relevant assortment. What differentiates a winner from a loser, or somebody who's an also ran, is who can make these things happen. So we said very clearly we need people who are doers. So we had a conference, business conference, for all our store teams or our head office people. And we said there are three things which really matter, which we want as the culture and values of the organization. First one is ownership. Think, act, behave like owners. So number one is own. Number two is execute. So you need to execute. Don't just talk, make things happen. And the third thing is excellence. You can't be happy being mediocre. You have to perform to your fullest potential every single day. So own, execute, excel became the mantra for the organization, right? And then we added a fourth point to it, which is earn. So we also changed our rewards and compensation structure. For people in business roles, whether it's the store teams, whether our buying team or merchandising team, or people who run, let's say, the three customer segments, as I said, trader segment, Horeca segment, and SEO segment, we had disproportionate rewards for people who were performing. And we said you can earn 5 times your variable pay if you do a great job. So let me take you the example of a store manager. Earlier, all the store managers were getting the same incentive, which was linked to the performance of the company. We said, forget about the performance of the company and the country. You need to focus on performance of your individual store. So let's say base salary for most of the store managers is in the same ballpark, right? But the variable pay could vary from 2 lakhs to even 30 lakhs. So people write their own paycheck. How much money they take home is a function of how well they have performed, right? So it's a big variation. At the same level, somebody is earning 2 lakhs, another person is earning 30 lakhs. So there was also an incentive for people to perform and deliver. So it's not just about a slogan of owning, executing, and excelling. It was also about your rewards are linked to bringing alive these values in your business and delivering the results that we were expecting from people. The other thing that we said is very clearly is we said we have to improve our cross-functional collaboration because we had a very siloed organization. For a lot of people, being a director was the ultimate thing in life. If you're on the board of Metro, it's like you've arrived in life, and very hierarchical organization. So we said that no, it doesn't really matter which function you are from. You may have great KPIs. So for the senior management, the top team, it was not about their functional KPIs. Their bonus was linked to the performance of the overall organization. And again, we talked about simple metrics. It's about like-for-like sales growth, which is very important in any retail business. Second is EBITDA, right? Third is free cash flow. Fourth metric that we introduced was about inventory, weighted average days of inventory. And the final one was NPS, Net Promoter Score. So we said even for the leadership team, whether you are HR director or CFO, these are the 5 things which really matter. So as a leadership group, you are focused on delivering the same variables. But lower down the organization, as a store manager, I should focus on what I control, which is my store. Or if I'm a buyer for meat, I need to focus on meat sales and meat profitability. I should not worry about what's happening in apparel, right? So, you align the rewards and compensation structure, you will start seeing the results. And then the other thing is, of course, you have to look at your cost structures because we are a wholesaler. Wholesale market in India is extremely price sensitive. Whether you are talking to a trader, you're talking to a hotelier, restaurant owner, they're all looking at pricing. And now pricing has become very transparent. You can go online and check the prices on the online platforms. You can call up a distributor and get their price. You can call up a wholesaler, get their price. And since we are dealing a lot in FMCG and commodities, it was very important to be the price leader. And for that, you have to look at your cost structures, which means you have to simplify your processes. You have to, do away with complexity. So we had a lot of people who are creating complexity in the organization. It's very important to make sure that these people understand that the new motto is not to create complexity, but simplify things. And I have a firm belief that simplification also means demonstrates to me your mastery of your subject. If you know your function, if you know your subject, life will be very simple in your area. If you have a lot of complexity, processes are very hard to follow. That means you are just confusing people in the organization. You're not a good leader.
Wow. That simplicity and clarity, Arvind, it sounds so simple, but I know, and everybody knows it's so difficult actually. Absolutely. Particularly as people grow in their leadership, People love to make things more complex than simple, and I can see that mantra that you are giving here in terms of remain simple and bring clarity to what actually your purpose is there. Thank you so much for sharing that. We are listening to Arvind Mediratta, Managing Director, Cash and Carry India, on Coffee with Shrikant. Such an interesting conversation. I'm sure you are enjoying that. And the wisdom that he is sharing with us at micro level, I think it is something that is going to help us. We'll take a pause here and come back to continue this discussion with Arvind. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We are in conversation with Arvind Mediratta, Managing Director and CEO, Metro Cash and Carry India, with me on Coffee with Shrikant. We heard Arvind talk about very important aspects and the success mantra that he shared with us. Focus on your customers, understand them well, very important point. Focus on the people in the organization, execution, and most importantly, excellence. He talked about multiple aspects of these areas. And now I'm going to ask him a question regarding how do we focus on our people, talent, and leadership, and learn from him about some of the stories that he may like to share with us. Let's get back to Arvind. Uh, Arvind, you mentioned about the purpose, and in particularly in times of crisis, we are actually driven by the purposeful leadership. The businesses, society, politics, anywhere, the leaders have to really be clear about their purpose, why they are leaders, and why they are doing what they are doing. And you worked globally, and you worked with great organizations in past. Uh, and I'm sure there would be multiple crisis situations, that you have handled. I'm aware of some of those, but it would be very good for us to listen from you. Anything that you handled as a critical crisis, and any lessons that we can take out of that.
I think two things I'll say. One is simplicity and clarity, and second is about customer. Who's your customer and what they want? I have a simple mantra. As you know, I started out as a marketer with Procter and Gamble, spent more than a decade with them in different parts of the world. So I believe that in any business, you have the biggest breakthroughs in successes if you tap upon one of the three customer needs. One is unmet customer need. So customers have a need, but nobody is able to meet that. So you come out with a product or a service or a solution that meets that need, you will be a winner. Second is emerging customer need, like right now in times of COVID, health and fitness is a big emerging need, health and hygiene, etc. Safety. The third one, which is very critical, which leads to biggest breakthroughs, is you tap upon an unarticulated need, which means if you talk to customers, they will not be able to tell you by the definition because it's unarticulated. So if you look at some of the biggest successes in the world, whether it was Sony Walkman about 20, 30 years ago, or Apple iPhone, they are so successful. They're blockbuster products, or they use iPhone is still a blockbuster product because they tapped an unarticulated need. To some extent, some of our competitors, especially the biggest online company, is also tapping upon a very unarticulated need. Unlimited aisle, right? And convenience of shopping with the click of a mouse or simple tap on your phone, right? So when you hit upon unarticulated needs, you are bound to succeed. So this is a principle that I've used. And typically this requires a lot of deep understanding of who your customers are and what exactly are they looking for. So the example I want to give is of KFC. I was the chief marketing officer of Yum in 2005. I was hired to relaunch KFC brand and take Pizza Hut brand to the next level. But the biggest challenge was, how do you relaunch KFC brand in the country? Because if you recall, they had come to India in the 1990s and failed. All the KFC restaurants had been shut down. So first thing which I did was looking at the market landscape. You look at who's your customer segment, right? So we looked at McDonald's. McDonald's was catering to families with young children. Pizza Hut was talking to young adults who were more westernized in their eating habits. I'm talking now in mid 2005, right? But there was a big segment of people that nobody was talking to. We call it the heavy fast food users, HUFUs. So in marketing, we love to use jargon. So we called it HUFUs, heavy fast food users. And the important thing, as I said, is getting that customer insight, which is going to open up the keys or unlock the doors to big success for your brand. So we found that for these HUFUs, heavy fast food users, the thing that really matters is that they have, these are typically, by the way, people who are in college or into their first job. And what is common to people who are in their first job or in college? They don't have too much of money, disposable income, because they're just starting out, or they're dependent on their parents for their fee and also for their pocket money, but they have a large appetite. As you grow older, your appetite shrinks and your wallet increases. But for HUFUs, you have a large appetite and a small wallet. So this was a big blockbuster insight. So we said we will go after the HUFUs, right? We will focus on creating value meals for them, right? So they have to be affordable, but you also have to talk to them in their lingo. So we created a menu of products with fancy jargon like chicken. We did not call it chicken burger. It became Zinger burger. It was not called small mini burger. It became snacker, right? So then we called it veg fingers, chicken fingers. So this is one big insight. You need to talk to them in their language, even the product nomenclature. Second thing is the look and feel of the restaurants. It was not a very fuddy-duddy place. It was seen as a cool place for young people to hang around in. The other thing that was very important is understanding that India is not like any other country. There's a huge vegetarian population in the country. So we had to cater to the vegetarian population. And here I use a very simple concept called veto. You have heard about the veto of the five powers in the United Nations, in, Security Council. Similarly, we said the vegetarians have a veto. We also looked at some data and we found that 97% of the time people in India go out in groups of two or more and eat. Only 3% of the time they're eating alone. So if 97% of the time they're eating in groups of two or more, and you apply the laws of probability, and in India, somebody's a vegetarian by choice, somebody's a vegetarian by religion, and people are vegetarian on certain days of the week. Chances are that on any given day, one person in the group will be a vegetarian and they can exercise their veto. And if you were basically only standing for fried chicken, you would alienate this big population. So you could never be successful. You could never get the critical mass. So we created a product menu to cater to the vegetarian population. So for chicken burger, there was a vegetarian burger, vegetarian zinger. For chicken snacker, there was a veggie snacker. For chicken finger, there was a vegetarian finger. The other thing that we realized is in India, burgers and pizzas were still seen as snacks. I'm not talking about 2005. I'm not talking about 2020, right? Because we would hear people tell us, even in Pizza Hut focus groups, that I've had a pizza just now, I'm going to have a meal after some time. In today's generation and today's time, pizza is a complete meal. But in those days, people were not totally feeling satiated unless they had the rice and roti with some curry. So we also created a vegetarian thali and chicken thali in KFC. So once you have understood who your customers are, who's, you know what appeals to them. This is also a global insight that they have a small wallet and a large appetite. You create a product range which is appropriate for your customers in the country. You create a blockbuster product or a blockbuster brand. So KFC never looked back since then. There are now probably more than 400 KFCs in the country. It's a big story. The other thing which I did, which I'm very proud of, is that it was called Kentucky Fried Chicken in those days. If you recall, when it first came to India, it was called Kentucky Fried Chicken in the 90s and early part of 21st century. So I had told the global brand council for KFC that Kentucky Fried Chicken name will not work in India because again, it will alienate the vegetarian population. So we should use a neutral sounding name. We should use KFC, the initials of the brand. And that later on became the global standard for the brand.
Wow.
Again, so it's about power of persuasion. If you believe in something, you need to stick your neck out and convince the people who have the decision-making authority to let you do what is right for your country and for your customers. So this was a big success story. I left and we had about 40, 50 KFCs and then the brand just took off like a rocket. So the key is It's about simplification. It's about knowing who your customers are and what they're looking for. And I think once you do that, there is no stopping you. There's another interesting debate I want to bring on this point. This is my favorite
Yeah.
topic. In those days, and this debate is relevant even now, there were some people in the KFC Global Brand Council. So we had this Global Brand Council of 6, 7 CMOs from around the world. And there were a lot of people who would say that, world is moving to healthier food. That debate is even more relevant today. It was even relevant in those days. So people don't want to have fried food. They want to have grilled food, right? So somebody said, why do we sell fried chicken? It's fast. We should sell grilled chicken. That's the future. That's what customers are looking for, right? It's an emerging trend. So again, we had this interesting debate that why do customers come to KFC? They don't come to KFC to diet. When you're on dieting mode, you don't come to KFC. You come to KFC to indulge. KFC chicken is feast for the senses, at least for the non-vegetarian section of the population. So you cannot walk away from your heritage. This is a classic mistake brands make. They fall into this trap that what we did in the past, what made us successful in the past, is probably not going to work for us in the future, and they walk away completely from their heritage. There's a complete 180-degree shift in their strategy. But we said no, we should not be apologetic about our heritage, and we coined a phrase called pride in fried. And it's so true that once you're clear, your customers come to you not for dieting. For if they want to diet, they can go to 50 other places. They can stay at home. They're coming to you for the taste of chicken. They're coming to you because your product is feast for the senses. So this is a big lesson, which I proudly share with all the people, that be very clear what your brand stands for. Be very clear what your customers stand for. Because, one of the things I learned in my first company, Procter & Gamble, is when you devise a strategy, you need to look at 5 C's. The first C is your customer. So if I'm a manufacturing company, my customer are the modern retail or the traditional retail stores, right? FMCG company.
Yeah.
Second is your consumer. Consumers are people who are actually consuming your product. So if you're making alcohol, who are the people consuming your brand or your product? Third is company. My company. What do I stand for? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? The fourth C is competition. What is competition? Because I cannot be operating, I'm not operating in isolation. I'm operating in a competitive market, and market is getting more competitive by the day. So I need to know what my competition is up to. And fifth is the country in which you operate. Because you cannot have a strategy which works perfectly well in the US market and you apply it in India, because the competitive landscape, the country regulations are so different, right? So you also have to keep in mind the country context. Even you look at lockdown, the way lockdown has been implemented is different for each country. So you need to look at these 5 C's. I believe if you look at these 5 C's, and then you do your focus on, you're clear about your consumer or end customer, and you clear about what their unmet, unarticulated or emerging needs are, you will be successful whichever industry you are in. And that formula has worked for me. I have tried this across different sectors, from retail to FMCG to durable. Every time it works. But the key is to know who your customers are. In this case, like Metro, we are very clear is Kiranas. And the biggest challenge was that with e-commerce companies spending billions of dollars and with modern retail, they were losing money. They could not compete because they were used to selling at MRP. But we are able to give them prices which allow them to sell well below MRP, and they can compete effectively with modern retail and with the e-commerce companies. Right now in the COVID crisis, we have also told them the importance of social distancing and the safety measures that they need to implement. Because if somebody catches the coronavirus infection shopping at a Kirana store, they will not come to that Kirana store. So it's also important for them to maintain the social distancing norms, the health and hygiene and safety norms. So be very clear what your customers want, what you will deliver, which your competition will not be able to deliver. And then if you go and then implement it, because it's not, as I said earlier, good enough to just strategize, you need to make it happen faster and better than competition, you will win. That's what I can share with you.
Oh. Now that's fabulous, Arvind. And you are one of the most reputed marketeers that the people have known, and one of the great leaders. Remember the time we worked together at Walmart, and I had that privilege of seeing you from the close quarters, how you built the B2B business of Walmart in India, building the team, strategizing, opening up to the first store, and planning those things. One of the things that I have seen, which used to always be a happy note for me among many things that I saw you as a leader, was your focus on the people and culture, and the way you picked your team, the way you allocated roles to them. We used to fight about benefits of these people, protecting their interests and treating them in a different way because of the different motivation, and that's very clearly I can see. Uh, Now we are in a stage where everybody is talking about something called new normal that is likely to come after COVID-19, and we all know we don't know that. But whatever it is not going to be the same that it was pre-COVID-19. It will be a new organization. It will be new people that we will need, meaning the same people, but a new approach, aptitude, attitude, and we will need different leaders. Leaders must change and do differently. So this is my last question to you, and want to understand from you, how do you look at this post-COVID-19 phase, and what would be your advice to the talent and leaders?
It's again a very good question. So I will say the leadership attributes will not change. I have this concept of a holistic leader. And to my mind, a holistic leader has three things: head, which is your mind, ability to think and strategize and analyze; heart, ability to connect with people and motivate troops; and third is guts, which is, we are living in a VUCA world. We have to take decisions. Leaders have to be decisive. You
Courage.
always wait for the right, all the data before you take decisions. So you have to learn to deal with ambiguity. So these are three critical traits of leadership: head, heart, and guts. Holistic leader must embody all these three things. And this is a test which I use for leaders when I hire. This is because there are some people who are extremely sharp, very high IQ, but then they don't deliver, they don't perform. And then you find that maybe the issue is not with their intellect, the issue is with people, what people refer to as people skills. I call it heart, because they're not able to connect with people and inspire them. And sometimes you may have people who are extremely brilliant, very good with people, but again, no results. Why? Because they sometimes don't take decisions. They don't have the guts, right? Guts are also very important, head, heart, and guts. So things will not change. These things have not changed in the past. But how you apply your mind will change in the future, because we are increasingly going to become more and more digital. All the businesses will become more digital. So when I talk about mind, you'll have to broaden the horizons of your mind to be able to embrace technology and embrace the digital world. The other thing which will happen is, customers are all unique, and there's a lot of data around. So people will need to excel in data analytics, data mining. And in the past, you could look, the data was very simple, what was presented to you. New age leader will have to deal with a lot more complex data. They need to deal with a lot more digital tools. So the mind remains the same, but the mind has to now deal with new type of information, new type of data, new type of customers. So that mind part is still important, but people have to make that transition from the old world to the new world. I'll give you the example of sales teams. I know a lot of excellent salespeople who are very good in terms of selling, but their selling was based on relationships. I'm sure you have met a lot of these people. They can sell anything. They can sell home to a bald person. So they thrive on relationships. But now we are moving into an age, or we have already moved into an age where selling has to be based on data, the purchase history of your customers in the past, their shopping patterns, right? So you need to now look at database selling. It cannot be pure relationship based selling. But a lot of relationship based guys are not able to make that transition. So they've become kind of irrelevant in the new world. Same is true for leaders. You may have been great at looking at Excel spreadsheets. So you may be good analytically, but now you have to deal with the new reality of digital world, lot of data, customers, individual customers' data. And if you don't make that transition, you're still living in the old world. I will say then the faculty of mind is not being exercised properly as per the requirements of the new economy. Same with heart. I think you may be brilliant coder, programmer, scientist, but ultimately in every business you have to lead teams, especially for in senior leadership roles. So you need to, that skill will still continue to be very relevant. And I think one example I can think of is my person that I worked very closely with in my previous job, Mr. Doug McMillan of Walmart, the Walmart global CEO. He has people eating out of his hands. He's very good with people. He makes people feel special. That's the special ability he has. So that ability will remain relevant even in the future, especially as we go through uncertain times. Cuts are important because the landscape is changing. Competition is emerging in all forms and fashion. You don't know today who's your competitor going to be tomorrow. The same old competitors may not be your competitors in the future world. So we are living in a VUCA world, much abused term called VUCA. So decisive leaders will always be commanding a premium because ultimately you'll have to be able to take decisions. So I will say that holistic leaders in the past, in the present world, in the future need to embody all these three traits of head, heart, and guts. But the way your head will operate in the future is different from the way your head is operating now. Because the world around you, the seas around you will change. Your consumers will change, competition will change, environment will change, right? Your own company will change. So you have to adapt to the new 5 C's reality, as I call it. And your mind should be able to deal with that transition. So that's my simple take on things. So to make it more complicated.
Thank you so much, Arvind. One of the objectives of this Coffee with Shrikant, the show that I do for our employees, is fundamentally to help all of us to look at the same reality from different perspectives. And most importantly, how the reality and how they look at reality going into the future. And I must say that I'm so happy that you accepted my invitation and joined me on this show. We have met that objective to the fullest extent. Thank you so much.
Pleasure was all mine. Thank you for hosting me. It was wonderful as always interacting with you, Shrikant, and wish you and Pernod Ricard the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Arvind. There is one ritual that I do on my show is, I create a gift hamper, and as a host, I offer it to my guests. Since we are now maintaining this social distance, we are not allowed to step out of the house. I'll retain it with me, and at the first opportunity, I would like to, meet you and hand over that gift hamper.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All the best, Shrikant. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, friends, this was Arvind Mediratta, Managing Director and CEO, Metro Cash and Carry India, on Coffee with Shrikant. Arvind spoke many things and he shared so much of experience, his wisdom and advice with us. Among the things that we are going to learn, some of the things that stuck to me at this point are most importantly the overall leader's character that he talked about, the people that need to have their head, heart and guts together, and the kind of principles that are going to change. For example, he spoke about a good salesperson who has been banking on relationship strength may have to now shift a little bit focus on data management, on customer and data-based selling kind of approach. And these are some micro level advices. They help us to really change ourselves, our ways of working as leaders and as professionals. This was about holistic leadership that he spoke and many other pearls of wisdom that we had from him. Thank you so much for joining me on Coffee with Shrikant in this episode. Stay tuned. We will have another great leader coming and talking to us soon. Thank you.